Next, we have Melissa Biggs of DePino, Nunes, and Biggs, and she's going to be giving our legislative update. Melissa began her career with DePino, Nunes, and Biggs in 2007. She's a graduate of Southern Connecticut State University with a BS in Liberal Arts and earned her Juris Doctorate degree from Western New England School of Law. Attorney Biggs, in her role as managing partner, directs and lobbies for clients at the Connecticut State Capitol. Currently, Attorney Biggs serves as president for the Connecticut Lobbyists Association, where she has led positive change in the General Assembly to foster a healthy work environment for all the members of the Connecticut lobbying community. And Melissa, not sure what we would do without you. Come on up and give us our kind of exciting update.
I think Jeff put it perfectly. It's kind of exciting as an update, not fully. The legislative session ended Wednesday at midnight, so we are still processing a lot. The governor is finally starting to go through all the legislation, deciding what he wants to sign and what he's looking to veto. He's already announced that he's interested in vetoing some of the topics that were passed. I think the most interesting thing you're going to see in the news about this session is a debate on whether we passed a budget or not. There were so many semantics over what we passed and what we should call it and how we can treat it. For this group, I don't think any of it matters. I'm going to call it the budget, although some people will say it's a stabilization form that we've done. So what Connecticut decided to do was to try and greater assess all of the ARPA funding that was available and redistribute it based off of what their needs are. There was no change in a revenue package, so you won't see any changes in taxes or anything like that, but they were able to increase spending for some specific items, including the college systems, UConn and CSU. So that was passed on roughly the last day of session, and it was a very interesting perspective. We have a 2-year budget, so there wasn't a need to do anything specific, but this did grant some funding opportunities for some municipalities and schools. There were a lot of things that died this session, and typically that's great for us. So, and that worked out again this year. There was a bill that would require subcontractors of WPCAs to use prevailing wages and benefits. The bill would have also required that these contractors have an apprenticeship program. The bill had required this for a lot of industries, including gas, sewer, and water, but it failed in judiciary. It was actually fascinating. They were mid-debate of the bill, and then the House chamber got called into session. So they immediately had to end debate, and the bill died. So it was one of those fun things that was interesting to see. So this year, again, we saw that foreclosure bill. Again, this would prohibit when you can foreclose upon a property due to back payments. I looked in my records. This bill was actually introduced in 2017 originally. So we've been working on this bill since then. And over the years, this bill has increased or gotten to a point where it's more acceptable for a lot of WPCAs. I think at this point it would, if it were passed, it would predominantly impact some of the smaller systems. But this bill on Friday night, roughly at 11 o'clock, passed the Senate, and it would fail to be taken up in the House. This has been what we've seen over the years, where it sits on the House calendar and dies. Luckily, this happened again, so there will be no changes. There was a bill that first came out last year that we've always flagged as an option. So what we hear about this foreclosure piece is that they are very upset that people start off with these relatively small bills, and then within a few years, they have a lien on their property. They have enormous fees that they have to spend based on interest and attorney's fees. So there was a bill that was presented last year and the year before that would cap the interest rate for these loans, and that's capped by state statute for all municipal back pays. CCM, which is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, and COST, which is the Council for Small Towns, has opposed both bills, both the foreclosure bill and this limitation on interest rates, based on concerns of what it would do to their overall budget structure. So that bill also failed this year. There were 2 bills that were specific to climate change, and we follow that a lot based on resiliency and flooding issues that we may see. One was considered the Green Monster proposal. This was a pet project for a state rep. And it would, the biggest part that it would do, it would be considering climate change a state of emergency with a lot of other smaller pieces within the bill. It got scaled back throughout the legislative session, but ultimately only passed the House. And that was about a 6-hour debate. There was also, the governor had introduced a climate change resiliency bill that also failed. It would have required that there be a water plan and sewage and water reg review assessment every 10 years to see what's going on and if any changes were needed. A lot of bills that did pass included a PFAS bill, and I know that we've been following PFAS a lot. The bill had predominantly required the producer have more responsibility for any PFAS that has been generated by their product or their manufacturing system. The only piece of that bill that applied to us, and Jeff has helped me out here a lot, is it restated that biosolids with PFAS cannot be land applied in the state, and from what I understand, they're already not being land applied, so it really is just reaffirming what's already happening in Connecticut. There was a lot about affordable housing. For those that follow politics, affordable housing has been an issue for 5 years at least, and there's been considerations of what cities need to do to build up their affordable housing. I will say in a bill that did pass, it requires them not only to look at housing stock in these areas, that they need more housing, but also looks at the sewage infrastructure to ensure that they have everything they need in place. So that it is something that's going to be re-examined in the next few years, and we'll probably see a plan come out for the next legislative session. There will be, or there is goals that OPM would provide funding for additional sewage infrastructure in those areas. There was also a bill that passed that required anyone operating a water treatment plant as an operator in training must receive a certificate from DPH. I know that that's not typically what we're looking at here, but I wanted to make sure everyone was aware that that was passed late in the session as well. So on to this coming month, or the coming months ahead, we have about 10 legislators that have announced their retirement for the General Assembly. Everyone is up for re-election this fall, meaning we're going to see a lot of turnover. We're going to see a lot of changes. This is the time that I would love to get legislators into their local facilities, give them some background. For example, on PFAS, we were able to have a lot of legislators go to their local facility and talk about what PFAS means to them and the difficulties presented if there was further restrictions on them and how they test for it. So I think it's a really good opportunity for them to see what's actually happening at the local level and ensure they're not passing policies that would impact you directly. So that's my goal, is if you're interested in a tour, please let me know, and hopefully we can set up some defense for next year coming into it. I think it'll be a really long session next year, and we'll probably see the foreclosure bill again, and hopefully we'll defeat it again. So if anyone has any questions, please let me know, and I will be getting out a full year-end wrap-up or session-end wrap-up to the group shortly, as soon as we've all recovered from session. All right. Thank you all.